The American Cotton Shippers Association, also known as ACSA, is a trade association primarily made up of cotton merchants, founded in 1924. ACSA members manage the majority of the world's cotton trade, providing services of merchandising, delivery logistics, and risk management to their customers. ACSA will be holding its 101st annual convention in Palm Beach, Florida in June of 2025. For more information on ACSA, including their convention, view their website or Twitter account at Cotton Shippers.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Cotton Grower Magazine's Cotton Companion Podcast. I'm Jim Stedman, editor of Cotton Grower, and I'm joined as always by my good friend and colleague, Beck Barnes. Beck, how's it going today?
Yeah, going great, Jim. Good morning to you, or good afternoon, I should say, as we podcast here. Just afternoon. Things are great. Enjoying some spring temperatures. We've had a little rain this week, which is not entirely a bad thing, but yeah, I feel like we are in the last gasps of true spring here. I mean, it's been 70 when the sun's been out.
Right.
Good grilling weather. And anyhow, it's been great. I know that there's some farmers out there who are ready for some heat to warm these ground temps up, probably around here and north of here to get planting going. But otherwise,
I'm ready to get some ground dried out too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, that's, absolutely true. And as we visit today, though, we both know that, cotton planting is pretty much underway across the Cotton Belt. Although, as we mentioned, there are some fairly significant weather delays across this northern Mid-South area and parts of the Southeast. But as always, we're kind of watching those weekly reports on planting progress and working to get regular updates from friends out in the field, from growers and consultants and specialists. And so far, it doesn't seem like there's anything out of the ordinary to date, but, and obviously that's a really good thing for now. And another industry activity that's always ongoing is marketing and promotion of U.S. cotton. And when we mention those topics, most of us immediately think of the Cotton Incorporated Cotton Marketing and Research Program. But Cotton Council International continues to make inroads for U.S. cotton through its international outreach efforts under the Cotton USA banner. CCI recently welcomed a new executive director. Her name is Liz Hershfield. She comes to the organization with decades of successful experience in the fashion industry and in sustainability programs for many well-recognized cotton-rich brands. I had the opportunity to meet and visit with Liz during her recent trip to Memphis. We're going to share that conversation with you here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, that was a neat opportunity for us for you to get to interview Liz, Jim. So I'm excited for us to be able to bring that interview to our audience. But first, we want to welcome Corteva Agriscience back as a sponsor of the Cotton Companion. Our colleague and custom content manager, Hillary Wynn, recently visited with Jared Walls. He's market development specialist for the Southeast there at Corteva. And they discussed protecting young cotton squares from plant bugs. And we want to share that conversation with you right now.
Hi, this is Hillary Wynn, Custom Content Manager with Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. My guest today is Jared Walls, Market Development Specialist for the Southeast at Corteva. He is going to discuss how best to protect young cotton squares from plant bugs. Jared, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hillary, thanks for having me on the show.
Jared, as cotton planting continues, it won't be long before insect pests like plant bugs move in from host plants to feed on young cotton squares. What should a cotton grower's first consideration be when selecting an insecticide to protect those developing bolls in order to maintain boll retention and subsequent yield potential?
Hillary, this discussion really is coming at a good time, especially for growers in the Southeast. Plant bugs have been around for many years, but population trends have increased over the last few years, and growers are having to be more proactive at managing them. This is not a new topic for our friends in the Mid-South or even in parts of the Carolinas and Virginia, where they've been battling this pest for many years, but those populations seem to be moving through the southern part of Alabama and into Georgia fairly rapidly. I saw some numbers the other day that the University of Georgia estimated approximately 40% of the acres in Georgia were treated for plant bugs in 2024. And when you compare that just to a few years ago, I'd say prior to 2021, we averaged about 10% of the acres being treated. And like with many other insects and other crops, pest pressure will likely fluctuate from year to year, but managing these insects in cotton will likely be something that our growers will have to consider moving into 2025. So when selecting an insecticide, growers should consider a few things. One consideration should be selecting a product that provides excellent efficacy and control. Getting good control is critical to minimizing losses to plant bug infestations. And with tight margins our growers are facing, cost is always a consideration. But many times the lowest price product may not always deliver that's needed for control. Plant bug resistance to some pyrethroids, for example, have complicated things as well. We had populations from both Georgia and Alabama confirmed last year. So again, this stresses the importance of selecting the right product. One other consideration of selecting a product is the impact that it will have on beneficial insects. There are many insects in cotton fields that are predatory in nature, such as big-eyed bugs, lady beetles, and others that target secondary pests like aphids and whiteflies and spider mite. And when harsh chemistries are used to control plant bugs, especially on young squaring and early bloom cotton, the impact on beneficials can create scenarios that can flare these secondary pests.
When it comes to plant bug control, what do you recommend for effective control?
Well, the first key to successful plant bug control is to scout your cotton. Some of the best money that can be spent is to hire a scout or a consultant to monitor your fields. As growers, you're extremely busy, and being able to monitor your fields consistently is crucial. We're extremely fortunate to have great scouts and consultants all throughout the geography that can help monitor these pest populations. So scouting for plant bugs should begin very early as small squares begin to develop, because adult plant bugs can move in rapidly. They lay eggs very quickly. Those eggs can hatch within a week to 10 days. And economic spray thresholds should be followed to maximize yield potential. Not every field will need to be sprayed, so be sure to follow those thresholds. If and when thresholds are met, Transform insecticide is by far the best and most consistent product on the market for overall plant bug control. Extension researchers, consultants, and growers continue to recognize Transform as the standard in many plant bug programs. The translaminar activity of Transform provides excellent control by effectively reaching them even if they're out of the direct line of spray. And as we talked about earlier, beneficial insects, Transform is very soft on beneficials and will not disrupt that natural control of secondary pests. And in addition to plant bugs, Transform is also an excellent product at controlling aphids. So if they're present at the same time, Transform will be highly effective on both pests. The last point I'll make on application is that plant bugs can move up and down throughout the plant. Many will be in the middle of the canopy and inside fruiting structures, so coverage and penetration is extremely important, especially in more mature cotton.
Is there anything else a grower should look for when scouting?
Yeah, at the end of the day, especially pre-bloom, the goal is to retain at least 80% or more of those bolls, at least throughout the first few weeks of bloom. Research shows that at 80% or more, that plant still has maximum yield potential, but as you fall below that 80% yield begins to decrease significantly. Thresholds may vary by geography, so be sure to check locally, but where I am in the southeast, at that pre-bloom time frame, so from pinhead square up to first bloom, first week of bloom, the threshold for plant bug control is 80% boll retention and 8 plant bugs per 100 sweep with a sweep net. If square positions fall below that 80% and plant bugs are present, it's a good idea to consider management options at that point. During bloom, the sampling method does change a little bit as square retention is a little less reliable. So at that point, it's important to switch to a drop cloth method. Black is the preferred color for the drop cloth to easily see the immature plant bugs crawling around. So thresholds during that time move to 2 to 3 plant bugs per 5-foot row. And as you're scouting in that drop cloth, be sure to check bloom tags and bracts, because plant bugs and nymphs can hide in those as well.
Where can growers, retailers, and cotton consultants go for more information on Transform WG insecticide?
For more information about Transform insecticide, you can visit transformwg.corteva.us, or like always, reach out to your local Corteva crop protection representative.
Jared, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to Hillary and Jared for that segment, and to Corteva for their continued support of the Cotton Companion podcast.
Well, Beck, as we mentioned earlier, planting is underway in the 15 major cotton-producing states, but it would be a stretch to say this season is off to an enthusiastic, roaring start. And as we know, there are a number of factors weighing heavily on this year's crop. So I took a quick look at the most recent USDA crop progress numbers, since that report is back out now every Monday afternoon, and they really kind of tell the early season story. Overall, 28% of this year's crop has been planted. That's down roughly 3% below the 5-year average. And out of those 15 states, 10 of them are running anywhere from 3% to 16% behind average at this point. You look a little deeper at the numbers, you see a few more corn and sorghum acres planted than were perhaps previously projected. But of course, it's early. West Texas has enjoyed some much needed rainfall in the past week or so, and planting on the high plains is just getting started, as are parts of the Mid-South as fields and other areas have dried out from some rains earlier in the last few weeks. We're going to keep an eye on those numbers as we move ahead over the next few weeks and see where we end up. But before we move ahead, Beck, I want to ask you about a special appearance you made as a cotton industry expert on a streaming podcast, podcast/game show called The Big Fib. Tell us about that experience and how you got involved.
Yeah. I tell you, Jim, I wish I knew how I got involved. Somebody they did okay. So let me tell you about the podcast. It is a children's podcast where they basically find an expert in one little topic for each episode, and they bring an expert forward and then an imposter or someone who is pretending to be an expert on that topic. And they have a child contestant, and the child listens to these two people talk and asks questions of them. And the premise is the child tries to guess which one is the expert, which one's lying. And so I think they did one of these on peanuts several months back, Jim, and they interviewed a peanut farmer somewhere like in South Carolina, I think. And I suspect this farmer pointed them. They probably asked him that, well, we want to do one about cotton. And I think this person pointed them to us. And yeah, so I am by no means an expert. I know a fraction of what the average new to the game cotton farmer knows about cotton, but somehow I was put forward as an expert. And man, it was fun. They did they did kind of a pre-recording interview of me, and I had to put forward a lot of cotton facts. I emailed them a lot of factoids about cotton, and they shared it, of course, with the person who was going to be the fake expert. And man, we got to doing the recording, and the person who was the fake expert had done so much research and Googling, and they were answering the questions way better than I could. And I had educated them too well with my factoids, and they had remembered everything. And man, you know me, Jim, I have a hard time remembering what I had for lunch on those days. And so they would ask me a question that I had of a factoid that I had given to them, and I would take like 2 minutes, like, and anyhow, the poor contestant chose the fake expert. He got it wrong. He did not know that I was the actual expert at the end, but it was fine. It was all fun. I'm rambling here, but in truth, it was a great chance to promote to this big, large audience of school-age children that, hey, cotton is sustainable. It's environmentally the best option for your clothes, to tell the story about how man-made fibers don't biodegrade and they just stay on the earth. And, I made sure to include a lot of factoids about that element of the crop that we grow. And anyhow, it was cool. It was fun. I'm glad that we did it. And if you guys want to listen to it, especially if you have any kind of grade school age kids in your life, go look for the Big Fib podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. And yeah, I think you might enjoy it, but I know your school age kids definitely will.
I think that's great. I really do. I'm proud of you, Beck.
It was fun. Well, you should have been Jim Stedman should have been the expert we put forward. Let me just say that, because you probably.
I think they picked the right person. I really do.
Well, give it a listen and then make your decision.
I will definitely check it out. Definitely. But anyway, let's pivot now to today's interview with Liz Hershfield, the new executive director of Cotton Council International.
Fashion industry veteran and sustainability expert Liz Hershfield is a new executive director of Cotton Council International, which is the export promotion arm of the National Cotton Council. She's a fashion industry veteran and sustainability expert who has years of experience and success in spearheading and counseling many well-recognized brands in supply chain and sustainability initiatives, and she's joining us today on the Cotton Companion. Liz, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to visit with me today.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
Okay. Well, first of all, give me and our listeners a little background on yourself and some of the programs and some of the initiatives you've been part of.
Yeah. So I've been in the fashion industry for 30 years. I'm aging myself a little bit. Really working in supply chain, production, product development. So on the manufacturing and logistics and side, with all the factories and mills, but then also on the corporate side with designers and fabric and research and development and all of that, and kind of bringing those two together. I spent the majority of my career doing that. Worked for Gap Inc., worked for a startup called Bonobos. I was the 19th employee, really built the infrastructure. The company still runs on today after being sold twice. I was there 10 years. We were purchased by Walmart, and so I worked on the Walmart side for a couple years. And then during that time, I got really passionate about sustainability. It was right around when the Paris Climate Accord was signed, and the fashion industry was kind of just diving right in. And so I felt very fortunate. I was able to kind of create a career path for myself doing both. And ultimately ended up overseeing sustainability at J. Crew Group. And that's where I had the opportunity to really start diving into cotton. Over 70% of their fibers are cotton-based, like a lot of U.S.-based brands. And, we decided that soil health was something that we were really passionate about. And so we started talking to growers, cotton growers, and about how we could help support like regenerative farming practices that were already happening. As a brand, you must have a certification. I know people don't like certifications, but you can't market anything without a third-party validation behind it. And so we were able to bring a certification to the United States and started actually incentivizing U.S. cotton farmers, basically paying them, for the work that they were doing and, implementing these regenerative practices and showing, continuous improvement. And so I feel really lucky that I've been, around cotton for about the 5 or 6 years, really visiting farms and really understanding growers and talking to them a lot. And have spent actually last year a lot of time speaking at a lot of CCI events, which has been, so I got really familiar with the organization. So that led me here, and it's kind of a perfect culmination of my career.
That's wonderful. Well, I know with your fashion background, obviously you say you're no stranger to cotton.
No.
It's also no secret that cotton's facing some pretty strong headwinds right now, both from in terms of production and certainly in terms of demand. What is it about cotton that appeals to you, and what do you consider its market strengths, and what really made this CCI position attractive to you?
I just think cotton is just so ingrained in our lives in the United States. It's such a huge piece of who we are as a country, and especially being able to be involved with the farmers at the farm level has been something that's been very exciting for me, to just see the passion and the work and generations of families building this land and really preserving it and working to farm it. I think cotton's an amazing fiber. It's so versatile. It's easy. It's comfortable. And I've always luckily worked for brands that have primarily used natural fibers. So it's just something I've been used to being around. And this position was really exciting to me because there are a lot of challenges right now.
Sure.
But I think out of challenges come opportunities. So I do think that there's a lot of opportunities to just think about ways to elevate cotton and really, think about the next chapter for cotton. When I was growing up, I remember seeing all the marketing of cotton is the fabric of our life. I'll always remember that. As I always go back to that, we need to start ingraining those types of messaging into the consumer. So
obviously the Cotton USA brand is well known around the world. CCI's had decades of success in promoting and marketing U.S. cotton in, I think, last number I saw 50 different countries.
Yeah.
Are there some advantages that you see in some of the current programming, or do you already have some things in mind that you'd like to explore?
Look, I think that it's a wonderful team. I'm grateful because I've done some traveling and speaking at some of the events the past year, and I've gotten to know a lot of the folks. These events that get put on are really interesting and very well received. And there's a lot of different aspects and different approaches that are being taken. I think the education piece and really helping mills and suppliers learn, about the technical aspects, about the benefits of U.S. cotton, about why, traceability is important, all the reasons why, the quality, I think is something we continue to hone in on. And I think we can, some of these events that we've been doing have been amazing, but I think, we have opportunity to kind of architect something maybe for the next step is more like workshops where people come out and they really feel like they've done something tangible that's going to help their business, which I think that's ultimately what you want, right? I think the events have been amazing, but now it's kind of like what's the next level of those events and the marketing and to really just get the suppliers and mills on board with U.S. cotton.
get them back on board.
Yes.
You-
Sorry, back on board. They have been on board. But
They have been on board. Then they're still on board.
they're on board, but just
Yeah.
in a larger way. So
Now, obviously, our U.S. cotton growers are putting this year's crop in the ground right now. It's obviously less than ideal economic conditions. It's a concern, obviously, for the whole industry, not just from the perspective of the growers, but for Jenners, for everybody involved in the whole supply chain, even those of us who are on the periphery of that. Is there anything in particular you'd like to tell growers about how CCI can help them on their behalf?
Well, I think there's a lot of conversation going on and work going on right now that I think is really important around how some of these countries that buy cotton can actually increase that uptake of U.S. cotton and to use it as a negotiating tool with the trade deals that are going on, because I think that that's a huge opportunity. And so we want to be able to have the cotton for them when that happens, right? And there's countries like Bangladesh is a really good example. They're a huge manufacturing country. A lot of mills and spinners have popped up there over the last 20 years,
Right.
but they don't grow cotton. And so they have the opportunity to use that as a negotiating tool. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, even though it seems like it's just the worst it's ever going to be. I do think that there is that opportunity that U.S. cotton could really be something that could be a tool in a lot of these negotiations, and really also help with compliance with legislation and all of that. So,
Okay, great. Well, as we're sitting here meeting, you're in Memphis. We're in the NCC offices right now. You're here for a bit of an orientation and a lot of meetings and a lot of discussions. I think, as we mentioned when we first met, it's sort of akin to the ESPN famous car wash. How many meetings can you plug into one or 2 days? It's typical industry whirlwind. When this week's out of the way, what's your next step?
A lot. I've been really onboarding with the team, getting to know the team, understanding the structure, like really where can we be better? Where are there opportunities for us to think about how we can innovate and really kind of, the conversation, which we haven't had yet, but about how we bring like cotton more to the forefront in front of synthetics, right? So that's something that I really want to work on. We have a great technical team and working with some of these brands and their mill partners to say, how do we develop something that's cotton rich that can actually deliver like the same type of performance to your customer, but that's cotton rich, right? And that is better for the environment, that you're going to get credit for it and all of that. And so that to me is something that I'm really excited about working on.
Yeah, the shadow of polyester is always out there.
I know.
Always out there. We'll figure out a way.
Yeah, I think it's time. It's cotton's time to take over.
It is. Well, certainly you've got a big challenge ahead of you. We're very happy to have you as an official part of the cotton industry. So it's been a pleasure to meet and visit with you on this. So best of luck to you and to CCI. I'm sure we're going to cross paths again sometime soon. I certainly look forward to that.
I hope so. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to say thanks again to Liz Hershfield for visiting with Jim, and thanks too to Corteva for their continued sponsorship of the podcast, and to Corteva's Jared Walls for participating in this episode's special segment. As always, thanks to you, dear listener, for joining us and for your continuing support. As always, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did like what you've heard, please be sure to spread the word and tell your farming friends and neighbors about the Cotton Companion podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion, or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter. And on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
Cotton Companion podcast is produced by Tyler Hatch, Kim Henderson, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters for Meister Media Worldwide in lovely Willoughby, Ohio. I'm Jim Stedman, East Beck Barnes, and we'll be back with you in a few weeks with another episode of the Cotton Companion.
God made me a farmer. Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he